though I write lecture one, I write lecture one, lecture two, but it's not exactly a lecture. It's more of a session type thing. Okay, guys, do not consider this a lecture. Uh, my mind, can we go on a full screen? Okay, so guys, last time what we were discussing was basically we had an introduction. We discussed what is International Chamber of Commerce. We discussed what is general trading, and we also discussed basically how general trading differs from conventional trading. Today lecture is very simple, only 15 slides. Why I say only? Because half of these slides are like, just the headings and all those things. So we have very few slides, and but it would be a very important lecture. As you can see in the subheading, it says financial instruments and trade documents. Now, the problem is whenever I say financial instrument, I don't know why, people are just too scared with it. Like, whenever they hear the word finance, it's like, oh my God. And some people try to connect it with maths. Guys, this is just, we are talking about documents right now. So it has nothing to do with maths. Even if you suck at finance, it doesn't really matter. So it is very straightforward thing. Again, I'm explaining you. If you do not understand, feel free to feel alive, first of all, and feel free to stop me anywhere you want to. Okay. So guys, before we will try to wrap this up in like a maximum half an hour, and I'll give you like 10 minutes for 10, 15, 20, whatever you need for question answer thing. And then I need three things from you. Okay. So we'll discuss. That's the end of the slide. Uh, First, tell me before we start, can you all hear me again one last time? Like all of you.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
That's good. Thank God you replied. Otherwise, I would do like, just switch on your videos so I can see I'm not talking to robots. But since you guys are responding, that's cool. Okay. So as I was saying, can we go on the full screen mode? Mahim, can we go on the full screen mode?
It is on the full screen mode.
Really?
Yeah.
Then probably my slides are okay. Anyway, so guys, moving to the second slide. These are the three things which we'll cover today. And basically, we are covering very, very, very easy things. We are covering what are the basics of financial instruments. This is what are financial instruments and the documents that are essential, the very much needed documents to start trading. Okay, I'm not talking about like company registration or tax registration, all this thing. I'm talking about the document that you need to start any business deal. Okay, especially when it comes to general trading, these are the basic documents. We'll discuss them briefly. And finally, on the third point, as you can see, it says tasks for the week 3. Before we enter into session number 3, which would be next week, I need you to do something for me. So by the time we enter week 3, I was hoping by week 3 we will start the practical work rather than just lectures. At that time, you would need to share your screen with me as well. Okay. So keep your laptop screen. Okay, guys. Slide number 3. That's our financial instrument. Just to let you know, I think there's some problem with Zoom, so I'm still stuck on the first slide of this lecture, but I'm following my slides. Okay. So, guys, slide number 3. We are discussing financial instruments. Moving towards slide 4. Guys, what are financial instruments? Any idea? First, have you heard this word before? Has anybody heard this word before? Financial instrument.
No.
Wonderful. No. At least I like no as an answer, so I know you are still there. Guys, you see, you have to understand this thing. When we were talking about general trading, understand this thing that you are sitting in Pakistan, Nepal, Bangladesh, Zambia, or Afghanistan, wherever you belong to. Okay, you have buyers and suppliers all over the world. Okay, so basically, there are people who are doing business with you from around the world. Now, the thing is, this is a weird part of general trading, but it's the beauty of general trading that 90% of the time, Arham is saying check financial documents, something like that. Arham, we'll discuss. Okay. So basically, the beauty of general trading is 90% of the time you're dealing with people. Probably you have only heard them over phone, and that's the maximum. and you might have chatted with them over WhatsApp. You have never met the person, you have never even seen the person, and yet you are trusting this person to send you goods, and that person is trusting you that once he sends his good, you will be actually sending him money as well. So guys, the thing is like what I'm trying to say is in general trading, there's a very high chance that you not see the person. In short, the business is actually literally operating on trust. Okay, trust and all this thing. But as you know, there are like indefinite number of scammers in the world. When I say scammers, I mean people who would literally give you the stupidest excuses to take money from you. Okay, and it is very common. A lot of frauds, a lot of cheating in the business, and the worst part is anytime you're cheated, consider that money gone. You can talk to Interpol, you can talk to your local authorities and all this thing, but that money is gone. 99% of the time, it would never be recovered. So the point is, though the business is going on trust, okay, we have to still make sure, that there is some element of financial security that we are following. Okay. By financial security, I mean you have to make sure you have to come up with processes where you do not basically get cheated on. Okay. So this is where the financial instruments come in. Financial instruments are like literally like contracts, financial contracts, you can say. It's a contract between buyer bank and supplier bank. Where I will repeat this again. It's a contract between buyer bank and supplier bank to pay money. This is the simplest way I can tell you. I have a definition on the slides, but what I'm saying on slide number 4, I have a definition. But simply saying this thing, it's just a contract. I'm repeating the word bank again, guys. Why I say bank? Between buyer and supplier, there's a contract. But if a buyer is a fraud, or if a supplier is a fraud, like if the buyer wants to cheat, if the supplier wants to cheat, there's no literally stopping them. But when we are talking about banks, like top 50 banks, top 100 banks, which are actually dealing with this thing, the good part is like you can basically, you know, it's a conversation between bank to bank. Buyer bank is talking to the supplier bank, so there is some sort of trust level. That's kind of a good thing. Okay. So guys, financial instruments, these are just you can say financial bonds or just like bonds between two banks, and these are actually guaranteeing this thing that the supplier bank is saying to the buyer bank that my supplier would supply to your buyer. Okay, once your buyer is getting the goods, once he receives the good, the buyer bank has to release the payment. Okay, because the payment is actually gone from the buyer side, because the buyer is paying the payment, the supplier is providing the goods. We take example of, again, let's say, I wanted to say copper cathode, but that would be just too vague for some people. So let's say shoes again, or t-shirts. Okay, let's say there's a buyer of t-shirts, and then there is a supplier of t-shirts. The buyer of t-shirt is, let's say, sitting in Pakistan. Sorry, the supplier of t-shirt is from Pakistan. Maybe you guys don't know. Textile is the biggest export of Pakistan. So let's say there is a supplier of t-shirts from Pakistan, and the buyer is sitting in UK, or let's say London. Okay, there's a supplier from Karachi, Pakistan, and the buyer is sitting in London. So the thing is, the buyer actually tells his intention that he wants to buy t-shirts. Okay, the supplier in Karachi or in Pakistan, they would say, okay, fine, you can supply your t-shirts. The buyer say, I need, let's say, 100,000 pieces. So that's a good order for the supplier. Now the supplier would be like, okay, fine, you need 100,000 pieces, but how should we deal? How should we deal? Mostly the supplier would be like, you can send us advance payments. Okay. If like, even if they are genuine suppliers, they would be like, you can send up advance payments. The buyer, he would have to have some security, so he would definitely say, until unless he knows the guy personally, he would be like, no, I will not send you advance payments. And usually, majority of the time, I have seen many general traders in the market. If they are not aware of the financial instrument, they get stuck with the deal. They immediately stop with the deal. They have the product, they want to supply, they are good people. But again, since they're not aware of the financial instrument, they just get stuck. Guys, in order to avoid this thing, in order to overcome the trust issues between the buyer and the supplier, we use financial instruments. Financial instruments is almost like, I appoint my bank. Let's say my bank is Standard Chartered Bank. Okay? This is, I am a supplier in Pakistan, and this is my bank. Now there's a buyer sitting in London, and he has this bank, let's say HSBC. Okay, his bank is HSBC. So my Standard Chartered Bank would talk to HSBC that I am a representation. I'm representing the supplier side in Pakistan. The supplier told me that he would be supplying 100,000 t-shirts, and he has given me all these documents that he would be supplying with the t-shirts. Okay, the buyer bank in UK, HSBC, the buyer would have instructed his bank as well. So the buyer would be like, yes, my buyer told me the same information. And for 100,000 t-shirts, he told me that I have to transfer you 1 million money, 1 million, let's say, dollars. Okay. Is this correct? The Standard Chartered Bank in Pakistan, they would like, yes, this is the amount. So the buyer bank, HSBC again in London, would tell the supplier bank that basically, like, we will transfer you the money once the t-shirts are delivered over here, and you provide 1 to 3 documents, XYZ, whatever the documents are. Okay. Now, let's say, what is the security in this thing? When the shipment of the supplier reaches London, okay, the buyer has already, in advance, before the deal starts, the buyer has already deposited the money in his account to the bank as a security, okay? And the bank has confirmed that the buyer has deposited the money. So the money is not with buyer. He cannot back out, okay? So the supplier is sure of this thing, that if he's supplying the right product, he will definitely get the money. Now, once the t-shirt, the consignment of t-shirts reaches London, the money is automatically released from the buyer bank to the supplier bank. Okay, guys, do you get what I'm saying? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay, so basically, financial instruments are just sort of a guarantee. But as you can see in the last line, I have mentioned some financial instruments. Okay, guys, why we have multiple financial instruments is because, like, of the nature of the business. Okay, trade of t-shirt will be different from trade of cement. Trade of cement is different from trade of edible goods like sugar and edible oil. Now, edible oil business is different from crude oil, which you use for petroleum products. And crude oil is very different from minerals and metals. So, because of the nature of the business, payment terms differ. Sometimes you have to pay advance payments, which is very rare, but you have to do sometimes. Sometimes you have to make payment, as we discussed last time, at the loading port where your ship is standing for loading. Sometimes you have to make payment at the destination port. And destination port is the port of the buyer. Okay. And sometimes you have to make basically pay when actually the goods reach the buyer's warehouse, not even his port, his warehouse. Because of these different timings and different basically terminologies, different Incoterms, we have multiple, you can say, instruments, and we have to follow these instruments. Okay. So, guys, we are about to start with the instruments. We have basically outlined DLC or LC. We have outlined the revolving LC. We have outlined SBLC. And then there's one last thing, which is not mentioned here. It's not exactly instrument, but that is what we call PB, performance bond. We have it in the slides. I'll let you know. Let's move to the next slide, okay? So, guys, this slide is DLC or documentary letter of credit. Okay, that's DLC. This DLC or LC, simply letter of credit, it's the same thing. Okay, this is basically like, by its name, it's very even. It's letter of credit, as in the buyer is telling the supplier that I have deposited or I have credited the money in my account from the bank's point of view. Okay, I'm not going into the details of debit and credit, otherwise, it would look like an accounting class. Okay. So, guys, the buyer is basically saying that we have deposited the money in the bank. So the money is not with us. The money is with the bank, our bank. And this bank, the buyer bank, has already confirmed the supplier bank that this is basically, we have received the money. Now you can send the products. Okay, guys. Supplier is giving goods. In return, the buyer is issuing LC or letter of credit. So basically, any financial instrument. Okay. Besides one last one, all the financial instruments are actually provided by the buyer. Financial instruments are for payment. Who makes the payment? The buyer makes the payment. So all the financial instruments are provided by the buyer. Is this correct? Are we still here?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
So basically, if you look at point two, we mentioned this thing that the buyer's open LC, the we use the word open or issue. The buyer issues LC or the buyer opens LC in favor of the supplier. Okay. So basically, the buyer bank gives the letter of credit to the supplier. Okay. Now, as we have mentioned this thing, LC has many types. Okay, but we are discussing the very few ones over here. So what we are going to do is on slide number 6, we will discuss these are the types of LCs. I'm just discussing them very briefly, so you just know. Okay. Guys, there's one thing which we call irrevocable LC. Okay. Understand these things. Forget the word LC. All these words are simple English words. Okay. So these are just literally very simple terminologies used in trades. When we say irrevocable, that means this LC cannot be pulled back by the buyer. There are two words, revocable, as you see in the second one, and irrevocable. Irrevocable is basically when the buyer issues LC. Okay, he cannot say like maybe I'm just saying the buyer issues LC and the supplier is saying I will supply you in 30 days. Okay, no problem. But after 15 days, the buyer is like maybe I have a change of mood now. I do not want your product. Okay, if it's a revocable LC, this is possible. The buyer would say after 15 days or even after on 20th ninth day, if the supplier is saying I will provide you in 30 days, maybe on 29th day, the buyer is telling the supplier that I do not want your products. Thank you very much. And you'll just go away. Okay. So this is possible as well. But when it comes to this is revocable LC. When it comes to irrevocable LC, once the LC is open, okay, the buyer can think 1,000 times before opening the LC. But once the LC is open, the buyer does not have the option to pull back the LC. Okay. Do we all understand this?
Yes, sir.
Besides this female, what about the other people? Do we all understand this thing?
Yes.
Okay. Besides
Yes,
this
sir.
female and Mustafa, okay, Jamal is here. Thank you, Jamal. This is a new voice to hear. Okay, so guys, the third thing over here. So we understand revocable and irrevocable. If you understand irrevocable, the revocable is literally the opposite of it. Okay. So if I am a trader, if I am into general trading, I will prefer irrevocable LC. So the buyer, once he has opened the LC, once he has given me the guarantee, he cannot go back on his words. Okay. Okay, guys. The third one would be standby letter of credit. Standby. Okay. It's just like what we call standby or the stationary letter of credit, or what in the other form we call it SBLC. Okay. Guys, standby letter of credit literally means it's actually discussed in the further slides as well. But standby letter of credits is basically like, if I am, let's say, if I'm supplying t-shirts for all 12 months, okay, the buyer tells me that your products are good. I want to buy 100,000 t-shirts every month. Okay. I'll ask the buyer to actually provide me with a standby letter of credit. Standby letter of credit means that the buyer is giving me a guarantee for one whole year. Okay. Once you open LC, once you deliver one shipment, okay, that LC is done. It's over. The next month you would have to open another LC. Okay. Understand this thing, guys. LC opening takes time. Even if it's the fastest, it would at least take like 2 weeks, even if it's the fastest. Okay. And in some countries, you would find this amazing, but in countries like Pakistan, India, and all this thing, it is easier and faster to open LC than countries like UK. It's very weird. Okay. I've lived in UK, and I'm telling you from experience that opening LC in UK is a headache. You like it would almost take you a month just to open LC. Banking system in European countries is not as good as in Pakistan or India and all these things. Okay, so guys, in order to avoid the wastage of time or the wastage of energy or the wastage of basically whatever effort you can say, what we do is we try to go for standby letter of credit. Standby letter of credit is like this. I'll tell you why people want to do this and why people want to avoid this as well. A standby letter of credit means that if I want to buy, let's say 100,000 t-shirts, okay, I will issue an LC for 100,000 t-shirts, okay, but that LC would be carried forward the very next month as well. I would not use that LC. In short, if I let's say I buy 100,000 t-shirts and the price of that 100,000 t-shirt it's 1 million, okay, so my buyer would give me an LC of 1 million, but when it comes to my time of payment, okay, when I deliver the goods, when it comes to my time of payment, the buyer would pay me from me. He would actually do a bank transfer of 1 million, and the LC would be standby. LC would be there. Once I receive cash, a bank transfer of 1 million, that LC would be moved to the second month automatically. Okay. I do not have to open LC for another month. I will say this again. Guys, standby letter of credit, it's just there. Okay. We did not need this slide, but okay, that's fine. Since we have this slide, I think we'll come to this slide in a while. Okay. When I come to standby letter of credit. Can we move to slide number 6 again? Okay, I was discussing those points. Guys, I'll come to SBLC in a while when we come to this slide, okay? Basically the other type of LC that we have is, or when you say confirmed and unconfirmed LC. Guys, confirmed LC is basically like, the LC is open, the simple word. Unconfirmed LC, that this is a LC draft. We have this LC. If you want, we can open this thing. Unconfirmed LC is nothing, to be very honest. They use this term as a trader, as a supplier. You would never want an unconfirmed LC. You would always go for confirmed LC. If you really ask me how I want to deal, I will say confirmed irrevocable LC. Confirmed in a way that everything is done, the bank is ready and they are opening the LC and it should be irrevocable. So the buyer cannot actually go back on his words. Okay. So this is what I will personally do. Confirmed LC, which is open. Unconfirmed LC, they are still like, in a process that you give us this document and then we need this document XYZ. So just learn the word confirm LC. You would not want to even deal with unconfirmed LC. Okay. Then guys, there is another
Sorry,
thing which is,
sir, can you
yeah.
please explain unconfirmed? I can't
Okay.
understand.
Okay. Unconfirmed is like this. You see, when the buyer issues you LC, okay, because two banks are talking, the bank are saying that it's, you can say it's more like a unconfirmed LC is like conditional LC, that you give us, you have to still give us this document and then we open LC. Unconfirmed LC is similar to an unopened LC. It's not opened. You can say it's still, there are conditions over there. Okay. So the LC is not confirmed. A confirmed LC is which is 100% confirmed. If you see some documents, it would mention 100% confirmed LC. That means all the conditions are fulfilled and the LC is open. Unconfirmed, that if you give us this document, we'll open LC, otherwise we are not opening LC. So unconfirmed is like, like literally no LC. The LC is not there. It's still not open. Should I repeat that or is this clear?
No, sir, thank you. I understand.
Perfect. And then guys, there's another point which we call transferable LC. Okay. This is a word a buyer and supplier does not want to go for transferable LC. Okay. But majority of the people like us intermediaries, we would love to have transferable LC. Okay. Now this is a funny thing. You have to understand this thing. Let's say there's one buyer, one supplier, and then there's one intermediary, commission agent like us. Okay, like all of us. Let's say we are commission agents. Okay. So the buyer is going to issue LC to us. We are the commission agents. Okay. And he would issue a transferable LC. A transferable LC means that you can transfer the LC to someone else as well. Usually LCs have the name of the supplier as well. Okay. Let's say if buyer is buyer limited would supply to, basically he would open the LC on the name of supplier limited. Okay. But in transferable LC, the buyer limited would open an LC without the name of the supplier, because between supplier and the buyer, I'm sitting over here. I will actually take the LC from the buyer and I will transfer the LC. I will put in the name of the supplier and I will transfer the LC to the supplier. Guys, I'm just trying to explain in a simple way. It's not exactly like this, but I'm just trying to explain in a simple way. Now, the reason for transferable LC is maybe I do not want to disclose the name of the supplier to my buyer. Okay, guys? Maybe I just do not want to tell the buyer who's my actual supplier. Because after 1 month, I do not want the buyer to directly deal with my supplier. I want to stay in between, otherwise, my commission would be gone. So, when it comes to transferable LC, it's like I do not disclose the name of the buyer. I tell the buyer, you give the LC to me. Okay. And make sure the LC is transferable because I am going to transfer it to the end supplier. Guys, 90% of the time, 90, not even 90, 99% of the times, the buyer would say no to this thing. Okay. I'll tell you why. Because for transferable LC, there are too many frauds. Okay. Frauds are like, I have been dealing into Africa, I have been dealing into China and all this thing. Even some parts of America, it happens like this that people take transferable LC from you. Okay. They go to the bank and then they sell the LC to the bank. Now, I don't know how they do it, but it's in some part of the world. It's almost like, I come to you, I tell you that I am about to get $1 million. I'll get it after 30 days. So I'll go to some lending institute, some bank or some private creditor, and I'll tell them I'll get $1 million after 30 days, but I need money urgently. So what you do is you take this LC from me for 1 million, and in return you give me 800,000. So the person is thinking, okay, fine, I will still make 200,000 just because I will pay this guy 15 days earlier. Okay, so they do this thing, and at the end of the day, the supplier is not supplying and all this, and it turns out to be a great fraud. Okay, the buyer does not lose the money, but a good amount of time, good amount of effort is wasted. Okay, so none of the buyer would literally, they would probably commit suicide. Okay, just give me a second. I I was ignoring the messages, but I see. Okay, we have Shabazz. Shabazz, what are you trying to say? We have discussed about LC and now discussing about its types. I think maybe he was trying to send the message to someone in private to accidentally send it to in general. Anyway, repeat revocable and irrevocable. Aram, are we going on the first one again? Okay, Aram, I will repeat irrevocable and revocable, but let's complete the transferable one. Okay. So, guys, as I was saying, the buyer would probably prefer to commit suicide, but not give you a transferable LC. Is this clear? Everybody clear with the transferable part?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Guys, last thing is back-to-back LC. It's exactly like transferable LC, but in this thing, the middle party, the commission agent, also opens another LC. It's like the buyer would give me an LC. I'm a commission agent. The buyer would give me an LC for, let's say, $1 million. Okay. I'll give another LC to the supplier for 800,000 because I'm buying from the supplier at 800,000 and I am selling it to the buyer at 1 million. But this would require for back-to-back LC, you would require a commission agent who actually has a lot of cash in his pocket as well. Not many people can do back-to-back LC. Okay, like people like you and all this thing who are just starting the business, you would not have millions of dollars in your pocket to do back-to-back LC. You would want to do transferable LC, but again, the buyer would not give you transferable LC. So what you want to do, you actually have to build another trust, and we will discuss another document which is called IMFPA. You want to sign this with the buyer and the supplier. So if you are connecting the buyers and the suppliers directly, they would not bypass you. As in, they would keep you in the loop. They will give you your commission, and they would deal directly, but still they will give you your commission. Okay. So we have a request from Arham that he wants to discuss the revocable and irrevocable LC again. Guys, revocable basically means that after a while, because you understand this thing, that the buyer buyers, when they place the order, the supplier needs time to process the order. Sometimes that time can be 3 weeks to 1 month. Okay, because he has to first of all process the order, then he has to pack the order, then he has to bring it to the port and all this thing. It would take time. Okay, he has to arrange logistic and everything. Now, if it's a revocable LC, that means the buyer has a choice that he can pull back the LC, he can take back the LC. Okay, he can revoke this LC. Irrevocable means the buyer does not have a choice. If he opens the LC, okay, he has to actually wait for all 30 days, and then his bank has to pay once the order is delivered. If it was a revocable LC, the buyer can say no even on the 29th day. From the supplier point of view, it's not exactly a very good guarantee, because if he is like, processing especially orders for you, let's say I am a supplier of plain black t-shirts, okay, but I get an order from UK. They say that we want black t-shirts but with a logo on it. So I'm like, okay, I can do that. And then I actually make the t-shirts first, plus I put, let's say, Adidas. Then I put Adidas on it as well. Okay. And on the 29th day, if it's a revocable LC, on the 29th day, Adidas people would tell me, we do not want to buy the t-shirts. What will I do with those t-shirts? Because I've already printed the logo. So it's like a complete waste of my money and time again. So I want an irrevocable LC, that by the time I'm processing and all this thing, they would not have the choice to say no. Arham, is this clear? Perfect. So guys, as we discussed before, we are on letter of credit, standby letter of credit. Guys, it is basically, for, as I mentioned the last point, it says amount of SBC is bound for the tenure of the agreement. Okay. So if you are dealing for 6 months, the SBLC would be for 6 months. If you're dealing for 2 months, it would be for 2 months. If you're dealing for 1 year, the SBLC would be for 1 year. Okay. Standby means literally that the cash is on standby. The cash is directly there. Okay. My buyer is telling me, let's say Adidas is my buyer. Adidas is telling me that they need 100,000 t-shirts every month. Okay. I, being a supplier, I have to make 100,000 t-shirts every month. Basically, the bank is giving me guarantee that we have the cash from Adidas for 100,000 t-shirts. So you keep providing them. Okay. So I make 100,000 t-shirts. I give it to Adidas, and the bank of Adidas, instead of paying from LC, they do a direct bank transfer like you do it every day in your normal life. You take someone's account number, you transfer the money in that. So basically, instead of actually cashing my LC, they would directly give me a bank transfer. Okay. And the amount of LC for 100,000 t-shirt, that amount would still be there. Okay. The point is basically why some people do SBLC, some buyers do not want to do LCLC, is because you need double the money. Okay. Let's say if I am dealing 100,000 t-shirts for, let's say, $100,000. Okay. For SBLC, I would need at least $200,000. Why? Because $100,000 I will deposit in the bank as a guarantee, and once my shipment is delivered, I need to basically pay $100,000 from my pocket, so the bank does not cash my LC. My 100,000 with the bank are still there, but I will pay the buyer. Oh, sorry, I will pay the supplier directly. So my LC is still there. My that 100,000 which I've paid to the bank, it's on standby. If the buyer says that I do not have money, or if they do not pay, or XYZ, whatever the reason, the guarantee that the bank has, the $100,000 that the bank has from the buyer, then the bank would actually pay me and the deal would be over. But until and unless the buyer says no, if the buyer is not saying no, okay, the buyer needs to pay $100,000. Now the buyers basically they avoid this thing because they need to have a lot of cash to do this thing. Guys, I'm telling you, $100,000. Believe me, this is a very small amount. When it comes to trading, especially crude oil, copper, and all this thing, this is millions of dollars of LC. Okay, so when it comes to millions of dollars, I think only where there are very few individual traders. Otherwise, it's usually government contracts. The government have. I am selling copper to China. Okay. And if I'm dealing with the Chinese government, even if I say like, $1 billion SBLC, it's not exactly a problem for them because Chinese government, they can do it. But when it comes to private or individual trader, it would be a very big amount for him. Okay. Is this clear, guys? SBLC, is this clear?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Cool, cool. That's good. Okay, guys. The second one is revolving letter of credit. Okay. Guys, it is revolving letter of credit. In some part of the world, it's SBLC. In some part of the world, it's revolving letter of credit. It's literally like you can say SBLC. Okay. In SBLC, SBLC acts as a guarantee, but in revolving letter of credit, there is no extra cash payments. As in, you do not need to, as a buyer, I do not need to get my cash stuck in the bank. It's just a term that my LC would be renewed every month. I'll, I'll give you a very basic example. Okay. If you look at the structure of any company, their HR departments, okay, suppose if someone's salary is, I'm saying, 10,000, 10,000 rupees, okay, it's a revolving order because they do not want to actually go and deposit 10,000 in someone's account. What they do is they give a revolving order to the bank, and the bank automatically basically deposits 10,000 rupees in the employee's bank account. Okay, it's a revolving order. It keeps revolving, means going in circles. Okay, so after every 30 days, the bank is doing the same process with the same amount, the same process. Okay, with the revolving LC, basically they would actually do this thing that the LC is automatically continued or carry forward to the very next month. Is this clear?
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
Guys, is there anyone who did not get this part? Okay, let's move to the next one. Okay, okay, I think okay, guys, this is a very small mistake. I think when I was making slides, I did not change the heading. Okay, for revolving. The slide number 10. So sorry for the delay. No worries here. No worries. So basically, on slide number 10, it's not revolving LC. It's actually, if you can change the heading, this is a bank guarantee or what we call BG. Okay, guys, bank guarantee is basically, this slide just do not see this as revolving LC. You'll correct this thing. It's actually bank guarantee. Guys, bank guarantee, or in short form, we call it BG. Bank guarantee is a guarantee from the bank. The bank is basically the buyer bank. It's telling the supplier bank that my buyer has a lot of cash in my bank account, in my bank. The buyer has a lot of cash. So if the buyer fails to pay you, I will take it out from the buyer's account and I'll give it to you. Simple as that. It's a guarantee from the bank. Okay. So of course, again, there are some different in a bank guarantee. Very few documents are required. It is done with very few buyers as well. Okay, only renowned buyers, people who have very strong banking history, people who have a lot of cash in bank. Only the bank would want to give guarantee for them. Otherwise, bank does not want any fingers pointing at the bank's name. Okay, so bank guarantees are provided by very few banks to very few buyers. Especially, it's provided to government buyers, government level buyers, and it is provided to buyers who have a lot of cash in the bank. Okay. So bank guarantee is just a simple guarantee from the bank. Is this clear?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yes.
Cool. Slide number 11. This is what we call performance bond or PB. Guys, performance bond. It's an agreement for the performance. Okay. Basically, performance bond, all the previous documents were actually issued by the buyer to the seller. Performance bond is the only document that is issued by the seller to the buyer. Because who's going to perform? The seller is going to perform. This is basically a bond, a contract by the seller. The seller is telling that to the buyer that if I do not perform, as in if I do not provide you goods in 30 days, okay, the seller bank would give a guarantee to the buyer bank that for, let's say, 2% or 3% or 4%, 5%, XYZ%, usually it's 2%. Okay. The seller bank is telling the buyer bank that if the seller does not give you t-shirts in 30 days, the seller is liable to pay 2%. For 1 million, how much is the 2%? 20,000, 10,000, 20,000, 50,000. Guys, what is the 2% of 1 million? Told you we are not supposed to do finance further. That's 20,000. Okay. So basically, for 1 million, the buyer is getting a guarantee that if the supplier does not give the products in 30 days, thank you. If the supplier does not give the product in 30 days, the supplier bank will pay the buyer bank $20,000. Okay. This is like a penalty, you can say. Okay. Performance bond is usually 99% of the time sellers are giving performance bond, and it is like, showing the buyer that we can do it, and this we are so confident about our work that we'll give you performance bond, that if by 30 days we are not supplying to you, you can actually impose penalty on us. This is like a confidence building measure. Is this correct?
Yes, sir.
Guys, okay. This is clear to everyone, right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So guys, this is the end of our financial instruments. Let's move to trade documents. Okay. The next slide. Guys, what are trade documents? As I mentioned in the start, these are not the documents, like not the government requirements. Okay. But these are the documents which you need to know. And as we are in session 2, session 3, 4, in session 4, okay, I would want you to prepare your own trade documents, and I would want you to select your product, and we will start sending your trade documents to buyers and suppliers. Okay. So you have to listen to this very carefully. Guys, we are going to discuss 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 trade, actually 6 trade documents over here. Okay. Let's start with the first one. Guys, the first one is basically letter of intent, or letter of, some people call it letter of intent, letter of intention, or letter of interest. The short form is LOI. Okay. This is issued by the buyer. It is a letter in which basically the buyer is telling you that I want to buy XYZ product. So it mentions the name of the product, what product they want to buy. It mentions the quantity of the product. Let's say I want to buy t-shirts. The color should be black. I want to buy 100,000 pieces. I want the price of the t-shirt to be between 50 and 60 rupees. And I want the t-shirts to be delivered into London, XYZ port, and things like this. Okay. And I want it for, like, I want 100,000 every month for 12 months. It's just the details of what you want to buy, how much quantity, and all these things. Okay. Initial details. LOI is usually 1 page, very rarely 2 pages, but never more than 2 pages. Okay? Usually it's 1 page. Okay. 99% of the time it's 1 page. So LOI is letter of interest. Okay. Issued by the buyer. So guys, once the buyer issues LOI, in reply to the LOI, the seller would issue soft corporate offer, or SCO. It's issued by the seller. So the seller is basically saying, yes, we can supply you black t-shirts. We can give you 100,000 pieces every month. Okay. Our price, you said you want between 50 and 60. Our price is 55 rupees per t-shirt. And XYZ. He's just confirming. Okay. Once SCO, soft corporate offer, is received from the buyer, sorry, from the seller. Okay. The buyer issues ICPO, irrevocable corporate purchase offer. Irrevocable, guys, understand this word. ICPO basically is that it's more of detailed document than LOI. It has more details. Okay. It has the bank account of the buyer, the bank, basically the name of the bank through which the buyer would actually open LC, and the name of the bank officer as well. It has all these details. Okay. Since it's irrevocable, this literally means that the buyer now wants to sign the contract and he would not back out of the deal. Okay. But guys, this is only in books. The buyers would still, again, I've seen so many buyers who would still back out from the deal. Okay. If the buyer, by law, if the buyer backs out from the irrevocable corporate purchase offer or ICPO, you can actually complain about that buyer in ICC and they will blacklist him. Okay. Guys, are we clear till point number 3?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
Cool. So guys, now point number 4 is FCO, again issued by the seller. So we are discussing like this: LOI issued by the buyer, okay, then SCO issued by the seller, then again ICPO issued by the buyer, and in return to ICPO, the seller issues FCO, full corporate offer, okay, FCO. It has all the details of the seller, and this is a full offer, so it has many pages. It has 5 to 6 pages. Okay, it again tells you what are the terms of the seller, where is the company registered, XYZ, and all these things. Okay, once the FCO is confirmed, it's signed by the buyer as well. Then the seller issues SPA, or sale and purchase agreement, or simply just you can call it it's an agreement between the buyer and the. This is the final document. Okay, whereas SPA has, it is usually, if you see my SPA, it is 15 to 20 pages. It has literally everything in it: the complete details of the buyer, complete details of the supplier, complete certifications of the supplier, like import certificates and all this thing. And then you can say 99% of the time it would have passport copies of the buyer and the supplier as well. The information page of the passport for buyer and supplier, it's there. Their addresses are there, their phone numbers are there, their bank manager numbers are there. What else? Yes, there are other clauses like arbitration clause. For example, if there is a dispute, if there is the problem with the deal, how will they take it to ICC and solve the deal? If there is a problem like your ship is going, there's a storm in the sea, and your ship breaks down, your ship is sinking in the sea, who is going to cover that cost? Everything is literally written in that document. Okay. Last document is IMFPA, or International Monetary Fund Protection Agreement. Guys, this document is for people like us, you, me. Okay, people who are sitting in between and who needs commission. It's a commission agreement, you can say. Okay, it's between the seller. 90% of the time, it's between the seller and the commission agent. I bring you a buyer. I tell the seller, I bring you a buyer. You have to pay me this much commission. The seller says, okay, I'll pay you commission. So I give him IMFPA. It's between me and the seller. The buyer would not know about it. Okay, it's between me and the seller, and then the seller bank would actually take responsibility of this thing, because I will be paying, I will be getting my money directly from the seller bank once the deal is done. Okay, you get commission once the deal is done. So basically, I will get the money from the seller bank. I can not only rely on the seller words, I have to have a document for myself as well. Is this clear, guys?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Guys, like I said, in week 4, you would need to basically work on these documents. But I understand this thing, you cannot directly work on these documents. So what I'm going to do is I will provide you all six documents like this. Okay. I'll give you all these 6 documents. I'll give you my LOI. Okay. I'll give you my SCO. I'll give you my ICPO, my FCO, and SPA. SPAs are different according to product. But I'll give you all these documents for sample. I'll give you on Word. You can take my document, you can edit it according to you. Okay, and again, guys, just move a little bit during the week. Okay, try to look into the documents, try to ask questions on the WhatsApp group. And again, I would want you to actually literally like memorize these terminologies, the one we discussed yesterday in the last session, not yesterday, and the one we are discussing right now. Because from the last session to now, these are the basic terminologies which are used. No buyer will tell you, I will issue you soft corporate offer. The buyer will directly tell you, like, I need a SEO. And if you do not remember at that time what is SEO, then you are stuck. Okay? Because half of the time you're talking to them over WhatsApp call, and you will sound extremely dumb if you do not know these things. Okay? Just try to memorize these words. Okay, guys, is this correct?
Yes,
Are
Yes,
sir.
we all
sir.
on the same page? Cool. Okay, guys, last slide. Slide number 15. 3 things from you. Okay. Guys, I am assuming you all have a LinkedIn account. If you do not have one, make a LinkedIn account. Okay. I'm not sure of if you have a LinkedIn account or not, but I'm 100% sure you do have a Facebook account. Okay, I'm sure you would stop eating, but not stop using Facebook. So I'm sure you all have a Facebook account. Okay, so guys, what I want you to do is to actually make another Facebook account if you do not want your Facebook to be filled with the trading stuff and all this thing. If you can make, then we'll give you some groups to join on Facebook. These groups are trading groups. Okay, when you join, because half of the time if you join like 10 groups, your Facebook would be filled with trading information. Instead of seeing stories and all these things from your friends, every time you open Facebook it would be filled with stupid information, maybe that you do not want to see always. Okay, so try to go for another Facebook account. And guys, do make a LinkedIn account as well. LinkedIn account can be a personal account, that's not, because LinkedIn is for professional use. Okay, I would prefer if you use your personal LinkedIn account for trading purposes. And we'll suggest you a few groups, and you will start adding those groups in the coming week. Okay, that's one thing. Guys, second thing is you would need to make accounts on these three websites. There are many websites, but I am just giving you example from these three. You need to sign up on TradeKey, you need to sign up on Alibaba, you need to sign on EC21. TradeKey, it's a Saudi Pakistani based company, second biggest B2B portal of the world. Alibaba is number one, Chinese. EC21, it's an Indian company. Okay, and it is a very good portal as well. Guys, these companies has all the buyers and suppliers. I just want you to make account on these websites. How to use them? Because anytime you make account, they would ask you to buy memberships. I do not want you to buy memberships. I just want you to make your account over there. Okay, these people, they would start calling you too, and they would be requesting you, please buy our memberships, we'll give you this benefits and all. Guys, you can get all these details that they're offering you in membership for free. I'll tell you how to do that in probably in the fourth session. I was hoping another guy, Abdullah, would do this, but if he's not available, I'll do this myself. Okay, but anyway, at the end of the day, we'll teach you how to get buyers and suppliers information. Okay, that's the last third point, which is the most important point. Before we move to the third session, hopefully by Tuesday or Wednesday, I'll give you a question paper of on a Google document, very simple quiz type thing. But I want you to invest time into that, and I want you to fill those details. It would be a question answer thing, purely based on your understanding. That it doesn't really matter if you do it wrong. I do not mind you doing it wrong, but I want you to attempt that question. Call it an exam, okay? It's an exam, but I want you to attempt that exam, so at least you know your knowledge as well. Okay, and believe me, I would be actually reading all these papers and all this thing, and at least by then I will understand where we exactly stand, where we need to work more. Guys, understand this thing. See, it's a Sunday. Okay, it's a Sunday. Let's close these slides and open the video. Guys, understand my point of view. It's a Sunday. It's a family day. Okay, I'm here to basically give you time. Okay, we are not exactly demanding anything from you, and we want to give you time because we want you to understand this thing. We want you to progress, and it's something that you can actually do while sitting at home. It is a very easy way of earning money, probably kind of the easiest business that you can find, and much better than doing a job. Okay, so I'm telling you this thing. If I am investing time in you guys, I need to exactly know where you stand. Okay. If you do not understand anything, let me know. Some people are just too shy to ask over Zoom. So at least by these exams, I would understand where we. There's no right or wrong answer in the exam. Okay. I just want to check, and I want to see, do I need to work more on the sessions, or on which part should I work more? Okay. So guys, I'll send you the link by Tuesday or Wednesday, and before the Sunday class, I need this filled. Okay. Probably I will send you the link for the next class. It would be automatically provided to you after you complete the session. And if I do not have the answer for this thing, I literally kick you out of Zoom. Okay. So I do need replies to this thing. We are done with today's session. Now tell me, do we have any questions?
I have like 4 to 5 questions. Yes. So, need to
Okay.
confirm. There
Yes,
are two
Mustafa.
confusions. Yeah. So first of
Mustafa.
all, that yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Go on. Go on. I wasn't able to hear you, but now.
Okay. So you told us that we would be communicating with banks through banks. So how this communication will be done and what would the process of that?
No, Mustafa, not you. The buyer bank would be communicating with the supplier bank. The bank has what we call the telex language. It's a coded language. Okay, they have simple format, but you do not need to worry about that because it's banking work. Okay, it's how two banks talk to each other because they want to keep some record as well. So it's not your problem. Let the banks do that.
Okay.
Your job is just to go and open the LC. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. The second question is that actually this was a thing that happened with my friend. He received in order from, I think, I don't know, somewhere from Africa for his garments, and he also received the confirmation from Africa's bank that okay, everything is done and you can proceed with the shipment. So he did that, and after
I know
doing
where you're
that,
going.
he just showed that message to his bank that I will receive the confirmation or any payment.
I
So the bank
understand.
said it's 100% scam. Your consignment is gone. So how we can avoid the scams even from the banks,
How we can avoid the scam? First,
bank
stop
scams?
being dumb. Stop being dumb. Okay. Why I'm saying stop being dumb? Because you only deal with banks. Understand this thing. There are certain banks and certain regions in the world. Scammers are everywhere in the world. Okay. So what you do is you say you will deal with top 50 or top 100 banks in the world. Okay. You can expect a fraud from a local bank, but you cannot expect a fraud from like Standard Chartered or HSBC or Lloyd's Bank and all like the big banks in the world. Okay. So in your LOI or in your SEO, you just mention this thing that you would be dealing with only top 100 banks in the world. That's it. Okay. This is just to avoid the bank frauds. You get my point?
Okay. And uh, there's one thing that you told in the performance bond that
Mm.
we will be like seller will be providing this bond, and it's about for the performance of the work. So if a seller fails to provide the shipment within the time that he commits, or if there's a
Yeah.
delay in the shipment,
Mm.
if it's a problem
No,
from the shipment side, so
no, Mustafa, understand this thing. Understand this thing. When I say performance bond, it's literally like, of course, the seller has a margin. Okay. If he's saying 30, he would actually be ready in maybe like 35 days. That's understandable. But there is a limit. Okay. Maybe the buyer would say, I will not even give you 1 day extra. When you're signing the contract, it's mentioned everything. So when you're signing the contract, you have to read it like 1,000 times. Okay. If you're so sure of your shipment, okay, that you will provide directly in 30 days. When I commit to you, I will provide in 30 days. That means I will at least make sure that I have the shipment ready in 22 or 25 days. Okay, I will not wait for the last day. That's one thing. Second thing is performance bond is only for the supply. If the shipping is taking time and all this thing, okay, that's not the headache of the seller. It's a problem with the shipping line. Okay, he should dispatch the order. It should be out from his side. It should be on the ship by 30th day. You get my point, Mustafa?
yeah, let's sure.
You said you have 4 5 questions. These are only two. Okay, guys. Besides Mustafa, is there anyone who has questions?
Yes, sir, I have. Can I?
Yeah, go on.
Sir, we are talking about, so we discuss revocable. So in revocable LC, we just discussing about, we take the example of t-shirts. For example, the company, the suppliers are, making t-shirts with logos. And after that, when the buyers, disagree about that we can't buy your t-shirts or anything
Mm.
else. So what about the loss of the t-shirts the suppliers had, sir?
You see, Who am I talking to first? What's your name? Okay, Rani. Rani, understand this thing. This is the reason I was saying that you should avoid revocable LCs. Okay, if it's a revocable LC, then the loss would be borne by the supplier. Okay, if he trusts the buyer this much that the buyer is giving revocable LC and he is still planning to do deal on revocable LC, so it's a loss of the supplier. But if it's an irrevocable LC, the supplier is still safe. Why majority of the time new traders in the market suffer losses? Because they do not understand these terminologies. Guys, before when I stepped into this business, I literally I memorized all these Incoterms and all these what we call the MTs. It's the monetary transactional terms and all this thing. I literally memorized these things because without even understanding memorizing these things, you cannot deal. Half of the time we would know if we are talking to a cheater or not. We literally know if we are talking to a scammer or not because we just literally look into his terms, talk to him, and we would know he's a scammer. Okay? No genuine supplier or no genuine buyer would ask you for stupid things because everybody wants to make money in the world. Okay, so they're always asking for the right things. A scammer would always ask you for the weirdest things in the world. Now, if you're too desperate or if you're too dumb in general trading, you will always suffer losses. Why I say too desperate? The supplier is telling you you have to give advance payments. And you're like, oh my God, because he's giving me a $5 discount, I will just make him advance payment. Just for that $5 discount, you lose thousands of dollars, It would be all wasted. So this is the time. Desperate traders and dumb traders are never basically welcome in general trading. Does this answer your question, Rani?
Yes, sir, I got it. Thank you.
Okay. Guys, is there anyone else? Yes, no, no, yes.
Please, Dr. Shaharyar, please explain them again about the group that they have to make after the fourth session.
The group that they have to make after the fourth session. Okay, guys. We were thinking basically, guys, okay, that you have to, we'll divide you in groups, okay? And you should do some combined research, as in when you're researching products and all this thing. Now, because you guys are, if I keep like, let's say if you are 50 in a session, or total we have more than 50 registration. If everybody starts asking like 2-minute question, that would be 100 minutes. 100 minutes is like 1 hour 40 minutes, you know. So that would be just for question and answers. That would be too much. So what I wanted was like, we'll divide you in groups, okay, where you start working together. You can decide, you can work on multiple products. That's not a problem. But at least you will try to help out each other, where one would understand, and if there's a query from someone else in the group, the other person can explain it. But if the other person can also not explain it, then I'm here. Okay, I'm always available on WhatsApp, so feel free to reach me. That's not a problem. But again, we want to divide you in groups. The whole idea of dividing you in groups and all this, I think I'll give you again next week. Okay, that's not a problem. But just consider this thing. This is the session. It doesn't really matter. Basically, the for the groups and all this thing, number of groups that you want to divide yourself into, you can have a group of 2 to 5 people, let's say, okay, if you want to divide that. I do not mind you working individually, but I would prefer you to work in groups. Okay, is this clear?
Yes,
Cool. So, guys, are we done? Are we done for the day? I'm assuming that's a yes.
I guess they all are. They're exhausted. Yeah.
Okay. I was just saying, like, no answer is a yes answer. Okay. Okay, guys. So basically, hopefully, we'll see each other on Sunday, that coming Sunday. And by that time, I have given you a few tasks. You should have been done with that. And maximum by Wednesday, I'll also send you the link for the exam thing. Okay. Okay. Thank you, guys.
Sure, sir.
And I'll see you on Sunday. Thank you.